Now that the House of Representatives and the Senate have both passed their versions of tax cuts for the wealthy, they have to get together to reconcile their differences and come up with legislation that they can all agree on. Now, keep in mind that even though there's been a lot of coverage of the two different versions, there's still a lack of coverage when it comes to certain provisions in both the House version and the Senate version. And so I wanted to share it with you guys just to give you a sense of what Congress has proposed, what's likely to be included in the final version of the legislation, and what is unlikely to make it. So first, the House bill tried to do away with restrictions preventing churches and other nonprofit groups from engaging in political activities. Remember, churches and religious organizations are tax exempt. So the whole idea of preventing them or restricting them from political activity was that the government shouldn't in any way subsidize anyone's political activity. And so the House was like, nah, we don't care about that. We're going to write in that we're going to loosen those restrictions. Luckily, the Senate did not agree, and this is not likely to be part of the final legislation. But it's something to keep in mind.
It's a terrible idea, man. Look, black churches can go then do liberal activities. White evangelical churches are going to go do. And then you're intermixing. And then not only does it hurt the government, in my opinion, by mixing religion into it, but it then corrupts your religion, because then you're worried about which politician you're going to support, how you're going to funnel money to them, and then you're in bed with politicians, and you're instead of leaving Caesar what is his and dealing with what is yours, you're now intermingling the two. It's a terrible, terrible idea. And then it's going to encourage people to do things like, okay, all right, well, then the Young Turks are religion. Now we're tax exempt. What are you going to do?
Right.
And we're going to now be able to do any kind of, not abide by the regular rules that we would normally have to abide by. It's preposterous.
Right. Now, keep in mind that there are religious organizations and churches that engage in political activity all the time, and for some reason they never face any consequences for it. So whether the House was able to get away with this provision or not, it doesn't really matter. They still get away with their political activism. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
All right, there's another portion that really stood out to me that is unlikely to pass, but it should be on your radar because it gives you a sense of what our representatives are looking to do. Now, the House bill also attempted to expand the 529 college savings accounts for unborn children. So basically, they tried to push this notion of personhood for individuals that haven't even, or fetuses that haven't been born yet. And it is a power play by conservatives to further their agenda to violate reproductive rights, do away with abortion and things like that. Now, again, this is not something that's likely to make it to the final version of the legislation because the Senate did not, the provision didn't pass a special Senate or the special Senate rules.
So because it's supposed to be about financial matters, right. It's not supposed to be about your abortion ideology. And the House doesn't care about that, but the Senate by law must care about that, okay? So, but look at the Republican ideology. So when they're not restricted by the particular rules of the Senate, they go, oh, okay, the unborn get a tax cut, but 10 years from now, when the chickens come home to roost in this context, everyone making under $75,000 get a tax increase. Right now, a third of the middle class gets a tax increase. So the born, if they're not rich, get a tax increase, but the unborn get a tax cut. Boy, the zygotes are going to be thrilled. If they had a brain, they'd be thrilled, but they don't because they're zygotes. Whereas actual human beings are going to be crushed by this tax bill.
That's right. Now there was a proposed tax cut for alcohol distillers. The Senate bill provides a tax cut on beer, wine, and distillers. The measure reduces excise taxes on smaller producers, halving the craft beer tax, for example, from $7 to $3.50 on the first 60,000 barrels produced domestically, and it reduces taxes overall at greater production output.
Well, this one makes sense because after they pass these tax cuts for the rich, we all need to get drunk. So I'm glad that there's going to be, the beer makers are going to be making more money. That's really the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll pass on a tiny sliver of that tax cut to us, and our beer might be 2 cents less.
So this provision is likely to be included in the final version of the tax plan. Both the House and the Senate seem poised to pass it, or include it, I should say. I mean, I like craft beer. I don't know how I feel about this. I think it's fine. I mean, when you consider all the other provisions that are disastrous, this is not the one that stands out.
Why are we picking winners and losers? I thought conservatives were in favor of free market. Why all of a sudden? I don't care. I mean, maybe I like craft beer. Maybe I like pot. Maybe why are we? What difference does it make what I like or what Republicans like? It's not about what they like. It's about that there's some senators in important states that demanded these particular loopholes for those craft beer makers. Why? Because they're donors to their campaigns. That's why. Why are we having these absurd exceptions?
Right.
The people who should be most opposed to it, theoretically, based on their philosophy, are conservatives.
Well, they definitely do pick winners and losers. And to be fair, this provision was included specifically to appease a Democrat, Oregon Senator Ron Wyden.
Now, I know they say that, but it also could affect senators in Wisconsin and a bunch of other places. And if Ron Wyden wants it, I don't give a damn. Because they think, oh yeah, you're gonna protect Democrats. No, I'm not. I don't want them picking winners and losers either. I actually, unlike Republican legislators and some Democratic legislatures, I actually do believe in the free markets. Get out of our way. Why? I don't care if it's craft beer or industrial beer or whatever. You shouldn't have loopholes.
All right. You don't like winners and losers. Don't care if you like craft beer. Got it.
Okay.
You are so salty.
I am. Okay. I need a tax break for salt.
Yes. Okay. But
we haven't gotten to the worst part.
Right. So here are the entities that the GOP consider the losers, okay? So who will get tax increases? Both the House and the Senate bills impose a new flat 1.4% excise tax on incomes produced by university and other private endowments. Now, endowments are, it's basically money that goes toward the school, okay? So it's not like these universities are like, yeah, we're making that money, and they're fattening their pockets with it. It's money that has to go back to the universities. And Republicans in both the House and the Senate are saying, no, let's impose a flat tax, 1.4%.
It's a win-win for them. They get a little bit of revenue. It doesn't actually come out of rich people's pockets. The rich people have donated to universities, but once it's in the endowment, it's just for education. And they're like, great, and we get to cut education.
No. Here's the best part. Here's the best part, okay? So they want to do this flat tax for colleges and universities, but they wanted to make one exception. One exception. And who was that one exception? The Senate bill initially carved out an exception that specifically would have helped Hillsdale College in Michigan, a school backed by the wealthy family education secretary, Betsy DeVos. But after criticism, it was deleted.
So the so-called free market Republicans tried to sneak into the bill. Okay, we want to hit everybody that does education except Betsy DeVos's school, favorite school, which actually helps do our propaganda. We're pro-propaganda, anti-education. And we love the free market. We don't want crony capitalism or pick winners or losers unless it's our winners that we're picking.
Yeah.
They never cared. They never cared about any of their so-called philosophy or principles. The only thing they care about is, where's my donor check?
And then finally, another provision that really stood out to me. The House bill repeals the interest deduction on various types of bonds, including private activity bonds often used by municipalities to finance hospitals, housing, and other projects. So the reason why that really stood out to me is because that will have an impact on affordable housing. Remember, that is funding that is used for, again, hospitals and housing projects. A lot of those housing projects include affordable housing, which, as we all know, is desperately needed throughout the United States. So those are the types of things that they want to attack in terms of getting rid of deductions or increasing taxes on. But when it comes to things like private jets or alcohol distillers, lower the taxes. Those are the people that fund us. Those are the people that look out for us. Those are the people that we like. Tacked onto the Senate bill is a section, Title II, which also opens the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas drilling for the first time in a generation. That was done because Lisa Murkowski has been aggressively pushing for it, and it seems as though both the House and the Senate are poised to include it in the final draft of the legislation.
So my favorite was that they also, another thing they tried to sneak in but got caught was teachers who buy school supplies for their kids because the public schools don't have enough money because Betsy DeVos and her family robbed them of that money to put it into their private education and their charter schools and their religious schools. They don't have enough money, so they're such wonderful human beings. They pay out of their own pocket, but they get a deduction for the money that they use on their kids, right? On their school children. No, they want to take that away. They want to take it away. So once it became public, they're like, you're gonna take away the teachers out of the goodness of their heart, buying school supplies for the kids who don't have school supplies. You're gonna take away that deduction. They're like, oh, their hand got caught in a cookie jar. They're like, oh, we despise the middle class. We despise teachers. We don't give a damn about your kids' education. We don't want them to live the American dream. They would compete with our kids, right? Okay, so they're like, oh, fine, we'll take our hand out of the cookie jar. But meanwhile, it's still in the bill, a provision to to create a new loophole for private jets. So what happened? I thought you were closing loopholes. They've created a new loophole for private jets.
Yes, they have. First of all, they have continued supporting deductions and loopholes that benefit the wealthy, but they have consistently gone after the deductions that help the working class and the middle class, right? And so this is, again, just another example of that. And what I beg people to just finally admit, and I'm talking specifically to the Trump supporters who said that they ignored the pussy grabbing audio and all the unsavory behavior by Trump because they're the little guys and they need someone to look out for them and their best interests, especially when it comes to the economy. I need you guys to finally admit that the GOP and the Trump administration don't care about you, don't care about your economic situation, and will only make your economic situation worse. This is not a ha-ha, I told you so thing. It's just me making a desperate plea to think about what's going on and fight to change things. Fight for a better country that actually does look out for us. Because this is not what's going on right now. This is terrible. This tax plan, this GOP tax plan has a 30% approval rating. Democrats and Republicans hate it, but they're still pushing forward with it.
Anna, you're way kinder than me today. I think that if you think a national Republican politician has your best interests in mind and you're an average middle class American, you are an absolute fool. And a fool and his money are easily separated. They're going to take your money and give it as a tax deduction to people who own private jets. Remember what they said about this bill in the first place? Oh no, we're cutting, it's tax reform, not even tax cuts. Now they've given up that pretense. It's because we're going to cut taxes, but then we're going to close the loopholes. And that's why it's going to be revenue neutral. Now it blows a $1.6 trillion hole in the deficit. Oops, yeah, we're just kidding. Don't care about the deficit, never cared. And on top of that, we're not closing the loopholes for the rich. We're increasing the loopholes for the rich. You're an idiot if you voted for Republicans, so you deserve it. You deserve to have your money robbed and given over to the donors of the Republican Party. Sorry, but you're a moron, and that's what happened. You just watched a video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.